but nobody's any better at this than you are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here. Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on.
Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate. Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Hell yeah!
11 got it. Rowdy there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
10-4. Great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thanks for joining me on a late Saturday evening on Memorial Day weekend. And as we remember all of the troops for giving the ultimate sacrifice. So thank you to their services for our country. Oh, it's been a long weekend already, and we haven't even really started racing. We got the truck race in last night, but no Xfinity. That's been pushed to Monday. And I will be shocked and amazed if we actually get any racing in tomorrow. So my guess is we'll have a doubleheader on Monday. So our Memorial Day will be filled with racing, it looks like. Just my guess. Definitely not a meteorologist, but I probably watch that as closely as I watch NASCAR. So my two side hobbies, weather and racing. But either way, we are at Charlotte this weekend, or maybe Monday. I'm not sure if that's still part of the weekend. It is part of the weekend holiday. But either way, before we do that, let's go back to North Wilkesboro, where, as Kyle Larson said, put on a old-fashioned butt whipping on the field. And he really did do just that, leading 145 of the 200 laps and having 54 fast laps. Yeah, that was just an old-fashioned butt kicking, to say the least. Great event, though. It was really cool to see the track come back. Real excited to see what they will continue to do with North Wilkesboro in the years to come. But I hope that they're able to figure out the next-gen car so we can put on a little bit better of a race. I mean, and the whole thing is, if you've watched racing way back 20, 30 years ago, there were races that were like that literally one guy would dominate. I mean, heck, we've had races at Charlotte where Martin Truex Jr. led all but 3 laps of 400. So it's happened in recent times. So it's not crazy to see that happen. The problem is a lot of times people are now at a point where they just expect door to door beating and banging the entire time. But either way, yeah. So Kyle Larson absolutely dominated that race. Tyler Reddick coming from 20th to 3rd was pretty good, and check out Bubba Wallace, 10th to 2nd. Never really had a shot at Kyle Larson, but definitely a good day for 2311 Racing. And has Bubba turned the corner, or will he regress? We'll see. I'm not sure what to think about him for the Coke 600. It's a long race. He is getting better at mile-and-a-half tracks. He won at Kansas last year, so we'll see. Eric Jones with a good top 10 finish, starting 21st. After having, in my opinion, just an abysmal practice going into that race. I didn't think Eric Jones had much for the field. And Ty Gibbs coming from the Open and finished getting a top 10 finish. I knew that one of the two guys would end up being somebody to take. And Josh Berry didn't have a bad day. I mean, he finished 15th after starting 22nd. So, but Ty Gibbs definitely showing that he might have gotten this next gen car figured out. But either way, it was a good race. I enjoyed it. It'll be interesting to see what they do with North Wilkesboro in the years to come. But let's talk a little bit about the longest race of the year. Last year was over 5 hours in length, 400 miles. We are at Charlotte Motor Speedway. It is an intermediate quad oval style D-shaped track. It's 1.5 miles in length, 24 degrees in both of the corners. This race is 400 laps in length. Dominator points will be 280, consisting of 100 laps led and 180 fast laps. So that kind of gives us a breakdown. We are definitely going to hone in on at least one Dominator. You may want to pick two. Hopefully that one Dominator and the other person both finish in the top 5 will definitely give you a really good points day. Then we're also going to be looking for at least 2 place differential, if not a third place differential, and then 1 good value pick that gives us a lot of PD upside, but also gives us availability to take some of the guys at the top of the salary chart. Track comparisons, we definitely look at Kansas, Las Vegas, Texas, Homestead, all of the cookie cutter style tracks that we race at. Charlotte was repaved, I don't know, gosh, it's been about 8 or 9 years now. But the track is definitely starting to wear out. Tire wear is becoming more and more of an issue at Charlotte, so we should see some really good strategies and some tire fall off, and guys that can save tires really will come to the top. If you're just joining me, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and let me know who you've got picked for this weekend. We did not have practice in qualifying because it was rained out today, so we don't have much to go on other than past history. So if you are new here, I'm going to break down this box up here and kind of explain everything that we've got and what we're looking at. If you aren't new here, you kind of know a little bit about this, other than I did change this week up because we didn't have any practice for qualifying. Inside this little gray box, I have broken down what I look at for similar tracks. So I used the Auto Club race from earlier this year, both of the Charlotte races, or Charlotte 22, Charlotte 21, the Texas race last year, the Vegas race from earlier this spring, and the fall race in 22, the Kansas race earlier this spring, and the Kansas race in the fall, the Miami race in the fall, and the Michigan race that happened in the fall. So that's all what's going to show up here in this gray area. So that kind of gives us a look at what these drivers have done at similar style tracks with some decent tire wear and fairly similar configurations. Now, Auto Club and Michigan are both 2 miles in length, and Miami is a true oval without the dog leg. But Vegas, Texas, Charlotte, and Kansas all race very similar and have some decent tire fall off too. Now, Texas is a little strange in turns 1 and 2, but it still gives us a pretty good idea of what these guys are going to be running like. So Kyle Larson, price tag for Draftkings, he is top of the heap at $11,000 in salary. He is going to be starting 12th. They decided this starting the same way they did qualifying back during COVID, which is this metric system of last points paying race, which was at Darlington, their current points standings, owner standings, and I think there's one other metric that I'm may have been qualifying from Darlington also. They take all of that and figure out where everybody's going to start. So Kyle Larson, having a tough day at Darlington, which was the last points race, he is going to be slotted in the 12th starting spot for the Coca-Cola 600. But when we look at this gray box here, which is this next line, this is, like I said, taking in the last 10 similar style tracks. And Kyle Larson has 2 wins, 4 top 5s, 8 top 10s, and 8 top 20s at those 10 races. He's got a 67.3 Draftkings average, which is the highest Draftkings average of all the drivers in the field, and a 10.3 average finish. And you see that's not highlighted in green. He does not have the best average finish at those tracks, but it is really close. Then on the next line, we look at the last 5 Charlotte races. So 2022, 21, the 2 races that they ran in 2020, and the 1 single Coke 600 in 2019. Now remember, Kyle Larson was under suspension for the 2 races at Charlotte in 2020. So he's got 3 starts out of those 5 total, and I notate this here anytime that they did not get the full 5 starts. And inside those 3 races, Kyle Larson has 1 win, 1 top 5, 1 top 10, 2 top 20s, an 81.1 DraftKings average for those 5 races, and a 14.3 average finish. In the 2020 race, so the last race that they raced here at Charlotte on the oval, not the Roval, but the oval, Kyle Larson finished 9th, which was the Coke 600 last spring. Then our full history, so Kyle Larson's full history at the oval at Charlotte, he's got a total of 13 starts with 1 win, 3 top 5s, 6 top 10s, and 8 top 20s for a 16.5 average finish. And then in this top left corner, this is where I have ranked him in the power rankings. So that takes in the 10 last similar track, the 5 last races at this particular track. It also takes into account his starting position. It also takes into account the last 10 races, so the current trend, and that includes, it does not include North Wilkesboro, but it includes all the other last 10 races of this year that were points paying. That gets thrown into the mix along with their starting position, and if there had been any practice, I would throw, there's a metrics that I'd throw into that. But either way, Kyle Larson does come out first in that ranking system. And then here is my ownership that I have of Kyle Larson. So I don't give you an exact number of how many different lineups that Kyle Larson falls into, but I've got him in about 40 to 45% of my lineups. He's got a little bit of PD upside potential. He also has the potential to lead and finish in the top 5. So with all that being said, I've got him in 40 to 45% of my lineups. If you are new here, I do run 40 different lineups and then spread those out across 5 or 6 different tournaments. I am pretty much a tournament player. I have played cash before, but I'm much more of a tournament style player, and that's where I build a lot of my lineups. So if you have cash questions, I can answer them. But Kyle Larson would probably be somebody that I would have in a cash lineup also. But most of everything that I talk about is mostly based on tournaments. So I won't go as in depth as we go along, or we'll be here for 2 hours. I try to keep these to an hour and 15 minutes unless we've got some good chat going on. So if you've got some questions or thoughts or what you think might happen, will they race tomorrow? Will they race Monday? Will it be Tuesday before they race? Throw any of those questions out there. I would love to chat with you. William Byron next in line, 10,500 on DraftKings. He is starting from the pole position. He did win the Darlington race, so that kind of locked him into the number 1 pole position for this race because of no qualifying. And in the last 10 similar style tracks, William Byron's got 1 win, 3 top 5s, 5 top 10s, 8 top 20s, a 43.7 DraftKings average, 11.5 average finish. And if we look at the last 5 races here at Charlotte, he's got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 3 top 20s, a 15.6 average finish, and he did finish 32nd in this race last year. So I don't love the pole sitter typically, but William Byron has also shown that he has, number 1, the ability to run up front for an extended period of times. He also has shown that even going down a lap or even 2 laps, that they have the fortitude to battle back and get back on the lead lap and end up with a top 5 finish. So, yes, sure, it is scary to take the number 1 pole position, mostly because there's a ton of place differential downside, and each spot that you lose or gain is 1 point for DraftKings. So the swing can be pretty big, especially by just leading a lap is only a quarter of a point. And fast laps get you 0.45. So each position gained and lost is a full point. So that's a pretty big deal. So I'd still have a decent amount of William Byron, 35 to 40%. That's how much I like the Chevys. I also like the Toyotas. They just seem to be really, really strong this year on 1.5-mile tracks. The Fords seem to come on a little bit later, but really with these high-priced drivers, we're looking for some dominating points. So this is where our dominators are more than likely going to come from for this weekend's race. Denny Hamlin next in line, who won this race a year ago, 10,300, starting from 4th. He's got 2 wins at similar style tracks, and he's got 1 win in the last 5 races at Charlotte. That was last year's Coke 600. He's got an 11.4 average finish, a 43.5 DraftKings average at Charlotte. And if we look at his total body of work, 31 total starts with 1 win, which was the one last year, 11.9 average finish, but 25 of 31 races he's finished in the top 20. So that's pretty consistent and pretty good for Denny Hamlin. Ross Chastain next in line. Oh, I was rewatching the race from last year, and it's actually on right behind me on my other computer. But yeah, Ross Chastain. I had completely forgotten that there towards the end, the reason why Kyle Larson didn't win the race last year and Denny Hamlin did was because Ross Chastain did Ross Chastain things to Kyle Larson last year. I'm surprised that Kyle Larson hasn't retaliated with Ross Chastain yet. We'll see. I guess there was no reason to during the All-Star race, but I don't think Ross and Kyle Larson are going to be trading Christmas cards this year, to say the least. But Ross Chastain, 10,100. He did lead a ton of laps last year. I think it was 150 of the 400 laps Ross Chastain led, and he was there battling with Kyle Larson at the very end of the race last year. So Ross Chastain, even though he finished 15th, was running very, very well. Not indicative to looking at his stats, but remember last year was his first year with Trackhouse. The 3 years prior to that, he was with Ganassi Racing. So Ross Chastain, 10,100. At similar tracks, he's got 4 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and 8 top 20s. So that's pretty good. A 12.0 average finish, not bad. So Ross Chastain does run very, very well at this style track. It does better at 1.5 miles than he does at short tracks, and he's pretty good at road courses. And he has done okay on super speedways. He kind of snuck a win at Talladega last year. But either way, Ross Chastain could definitely be a player, and coming from 14th, he does have a little bit of place differential upside to him. I'm running in about 15 to 20% of my lineups. Martin Truex Jr., 9,900. He's close to being dominant at this track when he's good. The times that he's not so dominant. But like I said, he has led, I think it was 392 laps back in 2019, I think is when he did it, and just walked the dog on everybody. We'll see that when I've got the last 4 Coke 600 optimal lineups that we'll look at after we break down all the drivers. But yeah, Martin Truex Jr. is very, very good at Charlotte. So definitely keep an eye on Martin, and he's starting 18th. So far, probably the best place differential upside is Martin Truex Jr. at this point in the driver breakdown. 9,900, I think, is a very, very fair price. And if we look at his total body of work here, I mean, he's got 31 total starts and a 13.8 average finish, but he's got 3 wins out of 31 starts. So yeah, I do like Martin Truex Jr. As you can see, I've got him in 40 to 45% of my lineups. He came out number 2 on my ranking systems, so right behind Kyle Larson, and that's why I've got them both pretty highly owned, and I think they'll also both be pretty highly owned. Chase Elliott next in line here. Chase Elliott was asked earlier this weekend if he was chasing points or if he was chasing wins, and Chase Elliott pretty much point blank said, "I'm chasing wins. I don't care about the points. I can't make up the points enough to get into the playoffs. I've got to get a win." So Chase Elliott is going to be fighting for wins. $9,700, starting 6th. Not a ton of PD upside potential, but a lot of drive and tenacity coming from Chase Elliott this weekend. So I think it's going to be one of those. He's going to be searching for checkers or records at this point to get himself into the playoffs. He's not chasing points. He says it's not going to do him any good. He's got an 8.6 average finish here at Charlotte over the last 5 races. He's got 1 win. If we look at he's got 4 top 5s out of the last 5 races here at Charlotte. That's impressive. Yeah, the only thing that scares me is, once again, he's searching checkers for records. That part does scare me a little bit with Chase Elliott, but starting 6th, I've got him in 15 to 20% of my lineups. I just think there's a little bit better PD upside potential with some other guys. And so far, Chase Elliott hasn't shown that he fires off really, really strong at the start of a race. And yeah, he can come and try to finish a race, in the last 50 laps and win, which would be great to see. But somebody like Martin Truex Jr. coming from 18th and then finishing in the top 5, they'll end up getting more points than Chase Elliott just because of the place differential upside. So if I'm comparing the two, I think both of them easily have the ability to be top 5 drivers, if not go for a win. But Martin Truex Jr. gives us a little bit of PD upside potential. Kyle Busch, 9,500. Kind of in the same boat with Kyle Busch as I am Chase Elliott. Kyle Busch has got to win. He's locked into the playoffs. He is starting 5th. His stats are pretty good. They're right there with Chase Elliott. In the last 5 races, he's got 4 top 5s. He finished 2nd in this race last year. Now, all of this stats were done with Toyota and not with Chevy, but I think the Chevys are as equal to the Toyotas. Kyle Busch got a win earlier this year at California at Auto Club. So similar track, a little bit longer, but the tire wear is just as severe. So I expect Kyle Busch to probably have a pretty good day. Starting 5th, once again, not a lot of PD upside potential. And so far, Kyle Busch has not been a driver that has gone out and dominated races. So I need some PD upside play with Kyle Busch at this point until I see him going out and dominating and leading, a third of a race. Next up here in line, Christopher Bell, 9,300, starting 9th. And Christopher's got a pretty good average here. 15th place average finish. He's got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s out of 4 total starts. He finished 5th in the Coke 600 last year. So, not as strong, especially over the course of the 5 races that we look at when we're looking at these guys. So the trend is not as good with Christopher Bell as these other guys. There's a little PD upside potential starting 9th, not a lot. And if we look at the average finish, it's kind of going to potentially finish where he starts. He doesn't have a win yet this year, so he's kind of like Chase Elliott. He's definitely hunting for that win. So I've got, I didn't completely fade off of him. I'd probably a little underweight with Christopher Bell, but either way, I don't mind Christopher Bell. Don't love him as much as I do some other drivers. Kevin Harvick. So Kevin leads the pack with 40 total starts here at Charlotte with a 14.9 average finish. 75% of the time he's finishing in the top 20. Well, the problem is he's starting outside pole, which is good for Kevin, other than they've had a fair amount of pit road incidents and penalties so far this year. That kind of bothers me and scares me a little bit. Now, he does have the best average finish of all the drivers in the last 5 races at Charlotte with a 7.8. And in the last 5 races, he's gotten a top 10 in all 5 races. Now he's only got one top 5 out of those 5 races, but all the other times he's finished in the top 10. Well, starting second, unless he goes out and leads a lot of laps, that doesn't do me a whole lot of good if he finishes 8th starting second, because you're going to lose 6 points right off the bat. And if you don't lead a bunch of laps and you're not dominant, it's kind of a tough one. So I don't mind Kevin Harvick. I'm not going deep on Kevin either. I've only got him in 10 to 15% of my lineups. I'm kind of putting most of these guys all kind of in the same bucket. I'm not saying I'm putting them all together on one lineup, but they're kind of falling into the same bucket when I'm building that lineup. Next in line here, Joey Logano. Decent little PD upside play here with Joey starting 17th. He's got an 11.8 average finish over the last 5 races here at Charlotte. 5 times in the top 20 at similar style tracks. Paul, evening Mark. Yep, I'm a local and chances are very slim to none on the right. Yeah, it's, I'm up right up the road in Richmond, and I'm not sure that my son gets his baseball tournament in this weekend either. So maybe by Monday afternoon, there's some potential that we get the race in and get my son's baseball in, but it's about ready to start raining here, and I know it's been raining in Charlotte all day. And when I looked at the radar, the tropical low that's off the coast of South Carolina, I don't think has moved much more than about 100 miles. And it's moved up the ocean. It hasn't even gotten on land yet. So we've got a long time of rain to come still. So this thing could be Monday, could be Tuesday before they get this thing in. The problem is if you're a big NASCAR fan, they're going to run into real issues with the Xfinity drivers and getting the Xfinity cars all the way out to Portland. I mean, I think it's like 3,700 miles they got to drive. That's going to take some time. So I definitely feel bad for the Xfinity truck drivers getting those cars out to Portland for the race on Saturday. But Joey Logano, let's get back to him real quick. Thanks for joining in, Paul. I appreciate you chiming in. Who do you like for this Coke 600? Who's your pick to win? But Joey Logano, $9,000, starting 17th. Decent amount of PD upside potential here. He did finish 20th in last year's race, but he was involved in the late incidents with when Kyle Larson and Joey Logano kind of tangled. So he was running well at the end of the race until that happened. So if he misses that, he ends up finishing pretty well. He's got 2 wins out of 24 total starts at Charlotte on the oval portion of it. A 12.7 average finish. So his average finish is pretty good. I do like some Joey Logano. I'm at 35% ownership with Joey. I like it. I like the Joey play more than I like the Kevin Harvick, Christopher Bell, or Kyle Busch. As you can see, I've got twice the ownership. All right. Next in line here, Tyler Reddick. And really cool paint scheme, especially running in North Carolina with the Jumpman University of North Carolina colors and Michael Jordan on the side of the car. So good little throwback for being in Charlotte and putting Michael Jordan, one of your owners, on the side of your car. So pretty cool on that. I do like it, even though I'm not a North Carolina fan. But either way, Tyler Reddick, 8,800, starting 15th. He finished 6th in this race last year. He's got a 9.5 average finish over the last 4 starts at the Charlotte Oval. No top 5s, but pretty consistently being in the top 10 or top 20. Like I said, he's got that 6th place finish last year. He's got 1 win at similar style tracks. So definitely keep an eye on Tyler Reddick. Starting 15th, there is a little bit of PD upside potential for Tyler also. Alex Bowman is back. And don't fear. Even if Alex Bowman, with his injury, is starting to have an issue, because this is a long and grueling race, Josh Berry is going to be there and will be there, that he can substitute in for Alex Bowman. And as long as Alex Bowman starts the race, he collects the Draftkings points. He also collects NASCAR points. So as long as he starts and competes one lap, Josh Berry could then jump in, and Alex Bowman is credited with all of the things. Now, if Josh Berry wins, Alex Bowman does not get the credit for the win. That's the only difference. He would get credit for all the points that was gained, but not for the win. But starting 31st is not bad. It does worry me that he's been out for 4 or 5 weeks, and he's still nursing a pretty much a broken back. He's been cleared. He raced 170 laps around North Wilkesboro earlier this week. I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday. They did a test, and the doctor said, yep, he's good to go. 170 laps at just a little over half-mile track compared to 400 laps at Charlotte are two different things completely. But I'm not too worried because Josh Berry also runs pretty well at Charlotte. If he does need to sub in for Alex, both of the seats fit both Alex and Josh very well, and Josh Berry's been used to running that car. So I don't mind taking the chance on Alex starting 31st. Decent amount of, a lot of PD upside potential for the 48 Ally. That 48 car's got 8 or 9 wins at Charlotte over the last 20 years. So yeah, the 48 car is definitely very, very fast. The guy who used to race that 48 car back in the field this week too. So we'll get to Jimmy Johnson here in a minute. But a 14.6 average finish. He finished 10th in this race last year. I think Alex Bowman's a good play here. Starting 31st, and like I said, I wouldn't be scared off that he's coming off of an injury. Like I said, if he's not feeling well, he can jump out of the car, and Josh Berry is there to finish that race off. Ryan Blaney next in line here at $8,400. Mile and a half tracks are not they're not bad for Ryan Blaney. They're just not where he needs to be. Well, the problem is Ryan Blaney really isn't where he needs to be for the past year and a half. I just need Ryan Blaney to turn that corner. Maybe drink some of that body armor before he starts. But 8,400, starting 8th. I think the issue and problem with Ryan Blaney is I don't know if there's any room for improvement. At least I haven't seen any from Ryan Blaney so far this year. So starting 8th, I think you finish where you start or potentially worse. So I mean, I've got a little bit of ownership in Ryan Blaney. And I think that's probably where he's going to end up falling, is somewhere in that 15 to 20% ownership range. So, yeah, I mean, you can take a shot on Ryan. I don't think he's going to be heavily owned. So if you're looking to be a little contrarian, Ryan Blaney might be somebody you want to take a look at, because a lot of people are going to fade to Alex Bowman with a $200 price difference and a much bigger PD upside potential. The only thing that people might be shy of with Alex Bowman is because he's nursing that bad back. Bubba Wallace, 8,300, starting 7th. And if we look at his stats at Charlotte, they're not great. He raced really well at Kansas. Kansas does race differently, even though we do use it as a comparison track because it's the same length, kind of similar banking. I just still, something between Bubba's ears still isn't, in my opinion, quite there. He's still, I don't know. I'm fading off of Bubba Wallace. You can take him if you want. His stats here in the past, just that's the part that kind of scares me. And at similar style tracks, other than his win at Kansas, he got a 16th place average finish. And only half the time he's finished in the top 20. Now, half of those times he's finished in the top 5. It's too hit or miss with Bubba, in my opinion. And starting 7th, there's not much of any PD upside room, where if he does happen to slip a little, there's just too much cost. It's kind of the same thing with Ryan Blaney. I don't love the play. Ty Gibbs, 8,100, starting 23rd. He doesn't have any stats here other than Xfinity, and he was really good in Xfinity here. So starting 23rd, we've got a much greater chance of having some PD upside potential coming out of Ty Gibbs than Bubba Wallace. And Ty Gibbs is quietly getting better and better each week. He had a great week last week at North Wilkesboro. Definitely had never seen that track. Nobody really had. But goes and gets second in the open race and then ends up with a top 10 in the All-Star race. Yeah, Ty Gibbs is slowly starting to really turn the corner. I don't think this is where he gets a win, but I still say Ty Gibbs gets a win this year. I mean, it could surprise me and get one here, but it's going to get real interesting if this thing gets moved to Monday. Ty Gibbs is slated to run the Xfinity race. If this thing gets pushed all the way to Monday, I might change my ownership in this, especially with Ty Gibbs and with Kyle Busch. They are both slated to run both races. And now you're talking about 800 miles, or I can't remember how many laps it is. 550, 600 laps around Charlotte Motor Speedway in one day. That is grueling. So if this thing gets pushed all the way to Monday afternoon after the Xfinity race, and you're planning on running Ty Gibbs or Kyle Busch, then you might want, I would say, fade off of either of those a little bit. I'm not saying pull them all the way off, but you definitely might want to fade any of those guys that are running. And I think it's just Ty and Kyle Busch that are running. I could check real quick. Let's see. Xfinity. Let's see. Xfinity, Charlotte. We've got Kyle Busch, Ty Gibbs. I mean, Josh isn't, I don't think we're really in much of a fear of that happening. Yeah, that's the only two that I see that are going to be running both races. I mean, Josh Perry, I guess, could have the potential of jumping in, but Kyle and Ty are the only two that are currently slated to be running in those. So definitely keep an eye if they end up having to run these things back to back. Not that Ty Gibbs doesn't have the physical strength to do it and can do it. It's just mentally grueling to go and run 800 miles around Charlotte. It's grueling to run 600 miles and 400 laps. Yeah, so to go and run another 200 miles, that could be tough. So that I probably would change my ownership if they do end up running both of those back to back. Next in line here, Brad Keselowski, $8,000, starting third. I mean, this potentially could be a spot where Brad goes and gets a win this year. He's good at this track. He's won once in the last 5 races. He's got a total of 2 wins out of 23 total starts. He finished 30th in this race last year, but I mean, it's a 600 mile race, 400 laps. Anything's possible, but and Brad's going to get a win this year also. He's good. He's right there with Ty. He's going to get that win at RFK being a co-owner. Starting third just has me a little worried that one slip and he's going to fall off. So, and the PD downside play doesn't come off well. So, you know, I mean, Brad has shown that he can finish top 5s this year and top 10s this year. The problem is I would need Brad to go and lead a bunch of laps. And I don't know if that's quite where we're at with Brad yet. Whereas a Daniel Suarez starting 24th, we've got some PD upside potential with Daniel. Now, he's not the best on this style track and not the best at Charlotte. I mean, in the last 5 races, he's only got 2 top 20s. He finished 25th in this race last year. His 8 total starts, he doesn't have a top 5. Got 1 top 10, 5 top 20s out of 8 starts. A lot of that happened when he was with Toyota too. So I've got some ownership in Daniel. I don't have a ton though. So, but it's $7,800. I don't love the play, but I'm okay with the Daniel Suarez play because of the PT upside potential. Whereas Chase Briscoe, even though we don't have a lot of deep stats with Chase Briscoe, and he definitely had some tough luck until kind of we got through the All-Star break, and he started to show a little bit more, showed a little bit better at the All-Star race. So I'll be curious to see how Chase Briscoe, I wish we'd had practice, because that would have been a really big indicator on whether Chase Briscoe's car's got something or doesn't have something. If he doesn't have something, it's seemed when they miss, they seem to miss really bad in that car. So that's kind of a tough play. There is some PD upside potential with Briscoe, but it scares me a little bit. So he finished 30th last year, but he had a top 5 finish in 2021 at this race. Yeah. This coin flip with Briscoe, in my opinion. So take it or leave it. I'm not sure. Kind of the same thing with Chris Buescher. About the same stats. We've got a little more history on Buescher. But starting 11th when you've got an average of 14.6 and you're not pulling top 5s on this style track. He had a decent race at Texas last year. But other than that, yeah, 17.4 average finish on similar style tracks, 14.6 average finish here. Out of 10 total starts at Charlotte on the oval, he's got a 19.3 average finish starting 11th. There's nothing there that makes me want to take much of Chris Buescher. Now we look at Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and this, for some reason, he really likes Charlotte Motor Speedway. Because similar style tracks, he sucks at. I mean, 19.5 average finish at similar style tracks, but he's got a 10.6 average finish at Charlotte over the last 5 races. 7th place finish last year. 2 top 5s, 3 top 10s, 4 top 20s out in the last 5 races. And if we look at his overall stats, they're not that far off either. 18 total starts with 14 top 20s. Now he's starting 10th, so not a whole lot of PD upside potential, but Ricky Stenhouse Jr. does like racing at Charlotte. It's just one of those tracks that he's just good at. So it scares me starting 10th. As you can see, my ownership's not great, but I could easily be wrong on this because his stats at Charlotte are pretty good. So just keep that in mind. Kind of the same thing with Austin Dillon here. He does do fairly decent at Charlotte. And starting 33rd because of the weird matrix qualifying that they do is a negative for him, but a potential really good gain for us. A ton of PD upside potential with a 17th place average finish over the last 5 races at the Charlotte Oval. He does have a win here, and I can't remember what it was. It was 6-7 years ago. But he's got a 16.2 average finish, starting 33rd. If he could just hit his average, that's going to be putting him really close to being cashing in tournaments. And if we look at similar style tracks, he's got a 13.2 average finish. I'll take that anywhere from 15 to 20 point PD upside with Austin Dillon at 7,200. But I also think Austin Dillon's going to be pretty heavily owned if I'm betting, and I'm a betting man, so I wouldn't be having a YouTube channel talking about Draftkings and betting if I wasn't. So yeah, I definitely like Austin Dillon. I think he's going to be pretty heavily owned, so just be wary of that. Ryan Preece, $7,000. Unlike Austin Dillon and Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Ryan Preece is not that great at Charlotte or similar style tracks. Now, we've only got the sample size is a little bit less with Ryan Preece because he's only got 5 starts at this style track in the last 10 of the races, with a 29.2 average finish. But at Charlotte, he's got a 28.2 average finish, and he finished 37th in this race last year. So, yeah, even though there's some PD upside potential here with Ryan Preece, I don't have a whole lot of ownership, and I don't love the play, especially when you've got 7-time champ Jimmy Johnson, the man who has won 8 times at this track. Now, completely different ball game, completely different car, next gen car, all of those things. He still has a 7th place average finish over the 3 starts in the last 5 races at Charlotte. So he's only missed 2 races. So this was happening in 2019 and the 2 races in 2020. He still had a 7th place average finish. Over his 37 total starts, he's got a 12.5 average finish, 8 wins. I'll take the 37th starting spot for Jimmy Johnson and roll the dice. Yeah, I mean, and Jimmy Johnson's in great shape. This won't be a problem for him to go 400 laps or 600 miles. The guy runs freaking Ironman marathons. So, yeah, no problem with Jimmy Johnson and stamina for this guy. Yeah, I mean, his stats are just stellar at this track. I mean, ran the Lowe's car, and the place was called Lowe's Motor Speedway for years. So, I definitely like some Jimmy Johnson. I also expect Jimmy Johnson to be probably over 50% owned because of this 37th starting spot and his name. So keep that in mind. I expect him to be probably one of the highest owned drivers because I think you can easily take a Kyle Larson and a Denny Hamlin or William Byron type, run him with a Jimmy Johnson, run him with an Austin Dillon, and then we got a couple guys down a little bit cheaper, and you've got and what appears to be a really good lineup. So I'm sure that I probably have a couple of those. In fact, I know I do. I'm running Jimmy Johnson in a quarter of my lineups. Where I am not running much of Eric Almirola, 6,600, starting 23rd. In the last 5 races here at Charlotte, he's got 4 top 20s, but no top 10s. Yeah, you go out and you finish 17th. Like he did last year with a 17.2 average finish, starting 23rd, you're not sniffing the top 14 in points for this race. So I don't have a whole lot of interest, especially when we look at like similar style tracks. He's got a 21.1 average finish. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Eric Almirola, even though there is some PD upside potential. He's much better on super speedways or tracks a mile or less in length. He's a good short track driver. He's not a great cookie cutter mile and a half type of driver. Austin Cindric, $6,500. And oh boy, he's only got 1 start at Charlotte, but he's got a negative 20.6 Draftkings average because of it, where he finished 34th. Now, yes, 1 race does not make a good sample size. Understand. We look at his similar style tracks, though, where he's got 9 starts, he's only got 1 top 10 and 4 top 20s out of 9 total starts. So starting 21st, and he's showing less than 50% shot at getting in a decent points day. I don't have a whole lot of interest in Austin Cindric either, just because they just haven't shown me anything still other than the Daytona 500, where Austin Cindric is pulling his weight. I mean, the same thing could be said with Ty Gibbs, Noah Gragson. I mean, all these new guys, they just aren't hitting like some of these more veteran drivers. They will. Austin Cindric's a hell of a driver, just like Noah Gragson, just like Ty Gibbs. They're now running with the elites. So I don't have a whole lot of interest in Austin Cindric this weekend. Eric Jones at 6,400, starting 26th, but got some PD upside potential. Now his average finish is only a 21.6. Total body of work here at Charlotte is a 16.3, not bad. If we look at similar style tracks, 17th, but that's still not quite enough to get you into where I need you to. And you know, so far the 43 just doesn't seem to have the speed that they had last year. I don't know if it's because they've pulled the plug on Chevy and are going to Toyota next year, so they're not getting the full support that they need coming from Chevy, or if something's just a little bit of a miss. But still, starting 26, there's a decent amount of PD upside potential here with Eric. So I'm willing to take a little bit of a shot on that. And I think his ownership's probably going to be about where I have in my ownership, just because he hasn't been as fast this year as we've seen Eric Jones be last year. Next in line here, AJ Allmendinger. AJ Allmendinger is a road course ringer. He is not a mile and a half ringer. Um, he even struggled with this style track in the Xfinity Series. It was a little bit better, but it still wasn't great. But especially when we're looking at Ty Gibbs or Noah Gragson last year against AJ, you took AJ at the road course. You didn't take him at Charlotte at the mile and a half. Andrew B, can we use Jones' speed too? Not sure I follow what you're asking. Can we use Eric Jones or something? I need a little more. Oh, compared to Jimmy Johnson, I would take Jimmy Johnson way more than I would take Eric. If you're talking about Eric Jones, I would take Jimmy Johnson over Eric Jones. I mean, you're talking about 11-point place differential, and they're both running almost identical cars. So if I'm putting both of them on the track together, which they are, in similar style equipment, even though Jimmy Johnson has been out of that car for 2 years, I still think he beats Eric Jones straight up. So, and you're talking about 11 points difference. So I'll take Jimmy Johnson over Eric Jones. The price difference is not that much difference. So yeah, I don't mind Eric Jones. Don't get me wrong. But if you're asking, do I take Eric Jones or do I take Jimmy Johnson? I take Jimmy Johnson. I mean, you can come back next Saturday and tell me I was absolutely wrong, but all the stats point towards Jimmy Johnson. And the only reason he did poorly at COTA was because Ty Dillon got into him and wrecked him. So, Justin Haley at $6,100. We can't look at Daytona. That's a crapshoot. Justin Haley, $6,100, starting 16th. I don't have any interest in. Even at similar style tracks, he's only got 1 top 5, 2 top 10s, 6 top 20s, which is not bad for Justin Haley. But starting 16th, there's not a whole lot of PD upside potential with Justin. Sure, we can have some attrition, and he either stays there or maybe sniffs the top 10, but I don't see it. He's got a 27.5 average finish over the 2 races here at Charlotte. Yeah, and like similar style tracks, he's got an 18.3. Just the best we're looking at with Justin Haley is getting a finish where you start. So, and that doesn't do me any good for Draftkings. Whereas a Noah Gragson at 5,900, yeah, Noah struggled this year, but he's slowly starting to figure this out. His finishes are not showing up because he has been a little aggressive. I will give Noah that, but he's also put himself in positions that he has the opportunity to win or get good finishes. And I mean, one time he got tangled up with Ross Chastain when Ross Chastain was doing Ross Chastain things, and then got punched in the face by Ross Chastain because confronting him. So Noah's slowly getting there. He's not getting there as fast as Ty Gibbs is, but starting 28th, we've got some PD upside potential with Noah, and I'm willing to take a little bit of a shot, especially at 5,900. We've got to have some of this price savings. So, Michael McDowell, I think this is a really good pick here out of everybody that's on this page. I'll probably like Michael McDowell at $5,700, especially since he's starting to run so much better at these style tracks. At 5,700, starting 30th, he's got an 18.7 average finish at similar style tracks, an 18.8 average finish here at Charlotte, and he finished 8th in this race last year. So I do like some Michael McDowell, especially for the price and the starting position. Decent amount of PD upside. I like Michael McDowell more than I like pretty much anybody on this page. Eric Jones would be a close second. So next grouping here, Corey LaJoie starting 25th. I mean, once again, I think we're kind of talking about, yes, Corey LaJoie has shown some spots of being better than he has been in previous years, which is great. But I still haven't seen enough consistency in that with Corey. And not getting top 10s. He's getting, top 20s, but starting 25th, I'm kind of need to see more than that. I think we're kind of close to finishing where you start. Maybe 4 to 5 spots better, but that's not going to be enough in my opinion. And I just don't see the speed out of the 7 or 77 that makes me think that they can get up there to get any more than that. Kind of the same thing with, Zane Smith. We don't have any stats on him, but he's driving the 38, which has been running much better this year. But I think the best we're looking at from Zane is maybe a 20th place finish. Other than that, unless there's a large amount of attrition, Zane misses it. I don't. I guess I'm in 25% of my lineups, but at this point, you kind of were like, do you take a Corey LaJoie, a Zane Smith, or Harrison Burton starting 13th? Well, I'm probably going to roll the dice with somebody who's going to potentially give me a little more PD upside when I think all three of them kind of end up fitting in the same basket. So that's why you see more ownership with Zane Smith than even a Harrison Burton. Even though Harrison Burton, I was like, no way. He's qualified, I think, 13th at Darlington. And yeah, and Gillen has been very good in this car. So the question is, Zane doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the next gen car. He's got some, but not a whole lot. And there's just something about having week in and week out learning how to drive this car and driving this car for 400 laps, which Zane has not done before. This will be the longest race that Zane's ever run in his life. There's just something about it. I've got interest in Zane, so don't get me wrong. But most of it's PD upside potential, where Harrison Burton, I think, has got PD downside. Now, Harrison finished 11th in this race last year. Not bad. And he finished well at Darlington last week or 2 weeks ago. But starting 13th, there's more downside potential here with Harrison. If Harrison goes and starts 13th and finishes 11th, where Zane starts 29th and finishes 19th, Zane's going to end up scoring more points. So I'm willing to take and roll the dice on a Zane Smith more than a Harrison. So next in line here, Todd Gillen. Now, Andrew, you just talked about Gillen running really well this year. He has been running well this year. He hasn't been running the 51 car. And the 51 car doesn't, yes, the cars are very, very similar here, but they still don't have the engineering that the 38's got. And the 38 doesn't have the engineering that the Stewart-Haas guys have. And the Stewart-Haas guys don't have the engineering Hendricks has. So you're still now relegating Todd Gillen to even a lesser piece of equipment than what he had in the 38. And it wasn't great in the 38, but it was better than what he's got in the 51. Now the 51's trying to make moves, and Rick Ware is hiring people to put the 51 in better positions. Are we there yet? I don't think so. Even Ryan Newman, yes, Ryan Newman was new to this car, was still kind of struggling in this 51. So starting 35th, there's a lot of PD upside potential, but I'm not sure Todd Gillen gets past 25th. I just don't see it. I would much rather take a Ty Dillon in 32nd, who's used to running with this not great equipment and is able to get something at the end of the day more than a Todd Gillen does. None of them are great positions. There is PD upside if they stay clean and make it to even 398 laps and end up with a top 20. We've got good PD upside play with either one. And I think you end up having to play some of these guys because you're having to pay up for some of the other guys. So I don't mind these guys. I'm not taking anybody past Ty Dillon, though. I have absolutely no interest in J.J. Ely or B.J. McLeod. Even though B.J. McLeod got a 19th last year in this race, and I understand that. And that is 15-point upswing. And that's great for somebody at $4,700. But the consistency that BJ puts something in the top 20 is rare. mean, 7 total starts at Charlie's only got 1, which was last year. At 9 of the last 10 races at similar style tracks, the only top 20 he's got is this 19th. Typically, BJ McLeod's finishing 34th, 35th, 36th, 37th. So, not a lot of interest in either JJ or BJ McLeod. They just don't have the equipment. So, kind of quick synopsis here, looking at everything. My Dominators potentials: Kyle Larson, Martin Truex Jr., maybe Tyler Reddick, and even William Byron. Guys that are going to come from the back that I like a lot: Alex Bowman, Ross Chastain has a little bit of PD upside potential, Joey Logano, Chase Briscoe, Ty Gibbs kind of falls into that, but Austin Dillon, AJ Allmendinger has a slight chance at it. He's not great at this style track, but value plays. I really like Jimmy Johnson. Eric Jones is not bad. Noah Gregson's not bad. Guys that I'm fading and not really going after much usage: Todd Gillen, Justin Haley, Ty Dillon, Harrison Burton, JJ, BJ McLeod. No real interest there, or much in Eric Almirola, Austin Cedric, or Corey LaJoy. Other guys that I think potentially could have top 5 or top 10 finishes: the Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch. I mean, these are the normal guys anyways. So a lot of times when I'm making my lineups, I'm starting my builds here, then I'm looking at some value and place differential, and then who else can I fit in towards the end of this thing to get a good solid finish. But let's take a look at other Coke 600 races. So 2022, last year, I mean, Ross Chastain led 153 laps. I talked about that earlier, and ends up with a 15th place finish. Well, that's still worth 103 points, even with a 15th place finish, because he had a little bit of PD upside play here and led all his laps. And the same thing with Kyle Larson. I mean, that's a huge PD upside play here, 36th to 9th, even though he and Ross ended up tangling at the end of that race. But leading 51 laps with 22 fast laps, that's an 85 points. I mean, you're not, without those two, you're not making much money in a tournament. But reached out. I mean, so we're looking, like I said, we're looking for that 1 or 2 Dominator / place finishings spots, and then PD upside plays. Last year was 5 PD upside, 3 value, and 2 finish. My value is anybody under $7,500. Some really good value is Ty Dillon. Same thing here. Justin Haley, $4,800. But this is where, I mean, Kyle Larson led 327 or 400 laps. Huge dominator in 2021. Nobody was even close. We're still spending most of our salary. We had $900 left last year and $100 in 2021. We go back to 2020. Alex Bowman led 164 laps, lost 8 spots, and still almost had 80 points. Martin Truex Jr. led 87 and finished 7th. So, I mean, if we look here, we only had one guy in the top 5, but laps led and fast laps definitely helped out. 2019, kind of the same type scenario. Missed the beginning. How many cars do you think finish on the lead lap? Realistically, 24. If I'm putting just a number out there, quick off the cuff, off the knee, I think 24. I can pull up what it's looked like the last 4 years because this doesn't really show it. Let's see. Let's take a look here. We go. Last year we had 16 guys on the lead lap. But realistically, I mean, Austin Dillon was tied up in that late caution. BJ McLeod made it through. Cody Ware made it through. But there were 22 that realistically could have been close to it. 2021, we had 14 that were left on the lead lap. That was the small Charlotte race. In 2020, we went all the way down to 20. So, I mean, I think maybe maybe 18 to 20. So maybe I was a little high on the 23. And then 17 in the 2019 race. That's all I've got on this spreadsheet. So yeah, so I think 23 may have been a little high. I think probably let's say 17 or 18. Finish on the lead lap. I mean, it all depends on how many cautions we have throughout the race, and were they multi-car incidents. So, I mean, the nice thing is they're going to run 100 laps. They're going to have a stage break. Run 100 laps, have a stage break. Now, they're going to have to pit for tires and fuel somewhere inside each stage. So, you are looking at minimum 8 pit stops. So, you've got a chance. I mean, somebody like William Byron, who slipped up at Darlington, goes down 2 laps. Well, he could easily get 2 of those laps back by being the lucky dog. And there's 8 chances of probably. I mean, four definite cautions are going to happen. Because they'll have a competition caution now because of all the weather and rain. So there's 1, then that'll happen probably a lap 30 to 40. Then you'll have stage break 1, stage break 2, stage break 3. So there's 4. And then you're going to have to pit 3 more times. So 8 total pit stops, if not more. That's just if things were to stay green and clean. So does that, hopefully that answers your question. So I think 17, 18 guys on the lead lap. Out of the race completely, I think we're probably looking at 7 or 8 guys realistically that probably won't finish the race, either because of mechanical or wrecking. So, and probably more likely 1 or 2 of those guys is going to be JJ and BJ. So, hopefully that answered your question, Andrew. I don't remember seeing your name. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and like button. And I would love to say we're going to race tomorrow, but I think this is going to be a doubleheader Monday, which for all the people out there that have Monday off, it'll be a good way to fill your Monday up with racing. Kind of sucks because I always like the triple header of Monaco, Indy 500, and Coke 600 on Sunday. Nothing worse than needing a few points and having a couple down on. Trust me. I was watching the truck race and I was sitting first in Chromehorn with about 15 laps to go, and just had a couple of guys. I mean, Zane was one of them. Got in that wreck and cost me that. I mean, I still made a little bit of money, but yeah, would have been nice to hit the Chromehorn in any of the races, but yeah, $1,000 on a truck series would have been really nice. But yeah, so it's tough. This is not for the weak of heart, to say the least. But you're looking at spending most of your money on DraftKings. Not most of your money, most of your salary cap. You don't want to leave a whole lot of money sitting on the table this weekend. You want to try to find the best use of your money, find the best PD upside plays. And you're gonna have to pay up for the Kyle Larsons, Denny Hamlins, but there's some good value out there. You just got to find the one missing, one that doesn't get a whole lot of ownership that ends up finishing well. I mean, that could be a Harrison Burton starting 13th. I don't like the play, but that easily could be the play. I don't have a whole lot in on that, but we'll never see. But Andrew, like I said, haven't seen you chat in before. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure hopefully you can tune in most Saturday nights. I try to do this as long as my schedule works out, and it tends to work out for Saturday night being a pretty good spot for me. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. Hopefully we get this race in tomorrow, if not Monday. Hopefully we don't have to wait all the way to Tuesday, because that'll really hurt the TV ratings. And we need good TV ratings right now for NASCAR so they can get a good contract and pay these teams what they're worth for the next 10 to 15 years. So I appreciate everyone tuning in to my channel. I know it's not a ton of you, but I do appreciate everybody tuning in and kind of giving me your feedback and your thoughts. And if you got any questions, if you didn't hit me up in chat, I will have my phone, and it does alert me when I do receive new chat messages. So hit me up if you got any questions, especially after the fact. I'll be more than happy to try to answer them. Have a great one, and we will see you next Saturday. Good luck, win some money. If you happen to hit and you got some of it from my advice, make sure you definitely let me know also. I always like to hear the success stories. One of our guys last week, Family Man, I know didn't hit big, but he hit enough to easily make his money back and then some. So I'm not going to share what he made because that's not my spot, but he had a good weekend last weekend, and I think the weekend prior to that. So I try to give good information. I try to give facts. I don't try to give a whole lot of opinions. If I do give an opinion, I also make sure that I tell you that it is absolutely my opinion and not based in fact. And I have some opinions about things. So I try to give you the facts. Good luck this weekend. Hopefully we get some racing in, and we will see you next Saturday. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here. Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around the end to do that. Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checker. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hell yeah!
Proud of you there, Mac. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day. Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position, we'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys. Excellent work, my man. Excellent work. Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal, we got it here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys! Way to rebound! Great job!
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.